As the beta comes to an end for Modern Warfare 3, let's go over the good, the bad, and whether my opinions have changed. Overall, I did enjoy the game, the new perk system, and the overall gunplay. There's a lot less visual recoil, allowing you to see what you're shooting at, and really focus on nailing down the recoil patterns of each weapon. As a mouse and keyboard player, there's still some things here and there that make it a little difficult to play and do well. The game's still not quite where Modern Warfare 2019 was, nor do I expect it to be. It does play a little slower and a little restricted compared to that. However, it's still a lot better of a game compared to last year's Modern Warfare 2, and more so when using the tactical boots that increases the ADS strafe speeds. I can't lie, I was feeling a little sluggish and I was getting melted throughout most of this beta, but once I put on this perk, all that changed and I was suddenly winning more gunfights, and getting a lot more consistent results. Even against sweaty players once SBMM started to kick in. So if you are someone like me who just wants good gunplay, decent maps, and a solid multiplayer experience, that's what Sledgehammer is currently offering with Modern Warfare 3. SBMM is going to be an issue, and as a solo queue player like myself, it punishes me a lot more often than other players. If you're someone who's looking to see if there's anything new or revolutionary in Modern Warfare 3, you're going to be disappointed, I can say that much. In my previous video, which you can check out, I do think there's enough that this game offers for a full price tag. But if you're only interested in one or two things and don't care about the full package, then by all means wait for a sale or skip out on the game entirely. Modern Warfare 3 isn't trying to reinvent anything, at least not to an extent that will change people's minds about Call of Duty. What it does offer is a very solid experience so far, and hopefully the developers at Sledgehammer will take player feedback and help keep this game feeling as good as it does now, and make it feel even better throughout its life cycle. Next up, I wanted to talk quickly about each map, the current spawn system, and then lastly the perk system. But before we do so, if you're enjoying this video so far, please leave a like, and if you want to hear more about gaming and FPS news, please consider subscribing to see more of these videos more often. First off, let's go through the 6v6 maps that were in the game. We had Skid Row, Favela, Highrise, Rust, and Estate. And yes, these are all maps that were in the original Modern Warfare 2. I do want to make this clear, I never played any of these maps outside of the version of Rust from Modern Warfare 2019. These maps have no nostalgia factor for me, I'm judging them based on how they actually played out. So, how did these old maps perform, and do they still work for a modern day game? For the most part, these maps felt fine. Some of them do feel a little dated, such as the narrow hallways in Skid Row, but that map is still my favorite out of this bunch. Even with the not so great spawn system that we had to deal with, it seemed to have the least impact on ruining the flow of the map. I would like to see sometime in the future a rework of Skid Row, maybe scale up the middle areas to be slightly larger than what they are now, and I know a lot of players don't want large Call of Duty maps, but Skid Row is fairly large as it is. It's just very condensed to the middle area where everyone is fighting in. Even so, the map is a lot of fun and it had the most consistent gameplay experience in my opinion. Moving on, I really did like Favela, which may be a controversial take, but I like how intricate and confusing it can be. The more you get used to the map and understand it, the more fun it gets for me. And again, since they are scaling the maps to be closer to what the original maps were, it does make some interiors feel a little too small. The spawn system throughout the beta has been an issue across all maps, and it does hinder Favela a bit. I would love to see how this map plays out with a better spawn system, but there's not really anything else negative that I can say about Favela. Now let's talk about Highrise. Highrise was the map I was looking forward to the most. Again, I had never stepped foot on that map before until this beta. I don't really count the Highrise that we have in the Warzone map Al Mazrah, as it does play out very differently and has a different layout entirely compared to the original map. This version of Highrise in the Modern Warfare 3 beta is still a lot of fun to play, or it could be. The current spawn system they have in the game just isn't at all compatible with the flow of the map. If you are trying to hold your spawn point to snipe across the map, an enemy will eventually spawn in the same area you are in and take you out. There's no consistency to where enemies spawn, and it's even worse if you're playing on hardpoint or domination. Trying to hold down a lane or an area is just near impossible with how random these spawns can feel. Excluding that, Highrise was still fun and it seemed less likely to run into 3 enemies at a time, which made for some really fun one-on-ones going on across the middle of the map. When it comes to Rust, there's not much that needs to be said. It's Rust. I like playing on the map, but the spawns are also very strange, and it's because of the spawn system that I just stayed away from the map throughout the beta. Again, I don't really have much else to mention or reference to it. It is Rust, it plays well when the spawns are good, but the spawns are bad right now, so I don't want to deal with it. And lastly, Estate. Maybe for one life modes or maybe for hardpoint it can be fine, but I'm just not a fan of this map or how it plays out. I don't like the open map designs for a Call of Duty game, and it just feels like everyone is struggling to hold down the house. There aren't any other parts of the map that are worth fighting over for or are fun to fight in. And now, since we're done with the maps, let's go to the game's perks. For the game's perks, I actually really like how Sledgehammer tackled them. Some perks are tied to a vest, and then we have the standard 3 perk system afterwards that are rebalanced and are referred to as some form of gear, be it headsets, boots, gloves, and more. In short, we do end up with a system where we can run 4 perks at a time, and all 4 perks would be available at the start of each match. For instance, the Overkill perk, where you can run with 2 primary weapons, is tied to a vest, which is the Gunner Vest. You will still get to choose any of the other 3 perks you like to run with, but you will not be able to carry any tactical grenades. Instead, you will get to equip 2 lethal grenades. So yes, you can run both Overkill and Covert Sneakers, which takes place of Dead Silence for the game, as well as the Ghost perk. There is a lot of flexibility with how these perks are being handled at the moment, and from the limited selection that we have. Unfortunately, the Bone Condenser headset, which is meant to amplify enemy footsteps and might be a counter to Dead Silence, was not working as intended, and we also did not have a High Alert perk in the beta. I'm sure we'll get one or the other, if not both, by the full release. So for the beta, there were 0 perks that you could choose to counter Dead Silence actively, and I do feel that in any Call of Duty game, every perk that affects your gameplay should have some form of counter. The Ghost perk only works if you're moving around, so you can't just sit idle in one safe spot and be invisible on the minimap at all times. You will have to move around a little bit and may end up missing out on a kill or 2 if you're trying to hold down a spot. Or you can play a little more aggressively and catch players off guard who have their eyes glued to their minimap. So going over what the beta offered and how it played out, did my thoughts change on this game? The short answer is no. Though there are some things for improvement and some things that I would like to see be adjusted, there's nothing here that makes me hate the game. I still think this game will be very serviceable for those of us who want that multiplayer arena shooter. Though there are some issues with the spawn system and of course SBMM, there's not really that many negatives to point out in the game. And whatever negatives there are either part of Call of Duty at this time, such as SBMM, or these are issues that are relatively minor and don't affect the gunplay, the movement system, and other core gameplay mechanics. With all that said, what was your experience with the beta? Were you able to try the game out for yourself, or do you feel burned out and are waiting for the next game to show up? Let me know in the comments below. Check out my other videos where we do look at upcoming games that I'm keeping tabs on. And until then, I am Mr. Rain, and I will see you guys next time.